Becky
I have to
Irwin.
admit, I'm a little nervous.
Okay,
I
be
felt
nervous.
confident all day about it, and then here we are, and I'm scared as crap.
Of course, I always love talking about the experiment, right? So then I'm right in my home territory, right?
Right. Well, the experiment, it's helped me a lot already. I mean, even just being willing to sit here and talk to you, that wouldn't necessarily have been something I would have been willing to do before. People is always socializing has always been a big thing for me, I guess, a scary thing for me. So putting myself out there is not always the easiest.
Right.
So it's kind of helped me to see that it is generating and starting from up here. It's not necessarily something that I can't overcome as I thought before.
Yeah. Okay, like, I don't know, should I ask you about premises for the experiment or how you're understanding it, or should I start to, maybe that would be a good idea, right? I mean, even what you said there about overcoming is a story, right?
Right.
That gives a credence to something there that you're going to jump over, right? And then that story right away builds something into your life that is an obstacle, right? Here's what I want to really be clear on, that we're building a linkage between like what you say and what you feel, right? And we're building that link and saying, hey, what you feel is not just all over the map here, but it does relate. And then, in normal psychotherapy or something, people change stories, but then you're supposed to believe that story, right? And then I can make a lot of stories up, and you'll maybe believe them for a while, and maybe say, then later you're pretty bright, you'll find a way around them or find out why they're not true in your mind. But I'm not trying to build that story. This story means nothing. All I'm trying to build is this link in between the two. And then from that, you realize that you are the story master and you're the feeling master too.
I like that because it really, for the longest time, has not felt that way. And with its non-dual teachings, just trying to let things be as they come, I felt more than anything, it's just let that story generate and generate and generate even more. I had been unable to disconnect from that, even though I was, I guess, trying. That method was not working for me.
Yeah. Well, first of all, let's just say non-duality is not a method, right? And it doesn't work, because it's not a method. So then it's not even designed to be a method. So then most of us are going into accepting things thinking that, well, maybe something will change, right? Because we really don't accept it, right?
Right.
Because if we really accepted it, it wouldn't be an issue. We wouldn't even think about yes, accept, no, accept. It wouldn't even appear on the horizon because it's just beautiful, Nothing to even be a distinction. It's pure accepting. But accepting as some kind of a doing or some kind of a duty or some kind of a method or practice, well, there's no truth in it, is there? It's not true to accept something if you have to kind of like effort toward it. It's not an acceptance. It's just some illusion or some decoration that you're placing on the basic feeling in your life, let's say. We don't even have to call it a dissatisfaction and stuff. Well, there's a basic feeling in your life that seems to be reappearing, and then you're saying, well, I don't know. If I look at the other guy, he doesn't really have that. He seems to be smiling a lot. He might be faking it, you know. We don't know.
That would be my thing with a lot of people is that I'll compare myself, you know, like here these people have never even heard of probably these teachings and they're getting along just fine. Like, why did I even have to find this, you know? Because I would try to accept, and then I would try to accept my non-acceptance, and then discover what already accepts, and it's still also effort.
Yeah. The whole thing, you can spiral, really, right? Because you spiral into then who is the acceptor, and then who is watching the acceptor, and you could go back one and back one. But really, you're only going back in your mind, right? Because you make these things up, like, well, if there's a thing here, then why shouldn't there be a thing back here, too? And then if that thing back here is known, there's got to be a knower, right? These are all logicals. It's all totally this, you know. There's nothing, it doesn't really appear like that. One of those things doesn't come up and bang his head against you in life. You have to kind of invent it or have somebody say, hey, what about this? And you go, oh my God, what about it? Yeah, really. So the linkage is the reason that I would, okay, let's say some people, we did a video and then what happened? They brought something to me and I give them another story. And then they think, oh, whew, that feels easier. So then that shift is the linkage, right? That's the proof of the link. And then my story is not like, who cares, right, about my story that gave the shift, you know. They might like that story and stay with it for quite a while. Or, you know, but really all I'm pointing to is, well, the link is what we call our model, you know. It's the model of the experiment. It's not really, I can't prove it. I mean, somebody just has to prove one exception, right, as far as a philosophical body. I'm not trying to make a philosophical body. I'm just trying to find some facility with how I feel and find choice points. And if I know there's a link and I can create that link and I can go and find other stories, and that, maybe it even sounds too complicated or more complicated than it is when I say it like that, but it's really so simple. It's just like second nature.
Well, I know I was finding myself. Whenever I guess chapter 7 came out, you know, I felt like I got a more clear understanding. It was kind of like a light bulb went off, you know, and I felt like I could kind of find the gap and see, you know, what was going on more and see what you were saying. And for like 4 days, I felt, you know, and that was another story I know as well that I was kind of latching on to, but I thought I was doing really good. You know, I felt freer than I'd felt in a long time. You know, I've been this ball of tension for a very long time, and so it felt really good. But then I think I let that too then get way into my head, you know, for a couple of days. I don't even know how to explain it, but I just like my mind just latches onto it as something else that I have to like do and focus on over and over and over again. And I had to kind of put it to the side for a couple of days. And then it makes things a little bit easier for me to see again, if that makes sense.
Well, we try to handle those things too, because we say very clearly that being friendly to yourself takes priority, right? So even if that is standing off, if it occurs as the standing off for 4 days, well, that's what happens, you know. That's how being friendly. But being friendly to yourself is only a story too. So if you're into the links, you're into seeing the link between the story. You know, it's not all that easy to create another story sometimes. I can agree. I want to do something where we practice on suggesting, using our intuition with each other and kind of suggest like what we think could be. And there's always something deeper, right? Because we could think that I'm unhappy with my anger, or I'm unhappy with my fear, and then we go into it deeper and we say, oh my gosh, I've been afraid so long. Really, it's a sadness about my life has been this way forever. Just to say, like then, in other words, what I'm saying is like, then underneath there we see, oh, there's a sadness. And then underneath there's who knows what, like a feeling of disconnect or something. I mean, I'm just making stuff up now. I'm not really, I'll stop doing it, I guess. Just to say there's a lot of levels of, we could be working on, well, basically that's what we're always doing, We're always working on false cause because we haven't gone deep enough, And then false cause could somehow be relieving for a while, but it's not going to really get us, wipe it out, right? Because false cause means we're working in the stack somewhere up high, and we haven't gone down to really what, In other words, up high in the stack are a bunch of assumptions already made. Like, for instance, you're no good at social situations. It's an assumption. So then you're working on how to overcome that, let's just say. Or you're, for a long time, you were working on how to avoid them, right? And then, so then that's false cause, right? That's really not what's happening. I mean, we could just say that without even knowing it.
Yeah. And I know this, I guess everything that you say can be a story, that you generate, but I do feel like I have so many, I've lived in my head for so long that, I don't know, but it's good. I'm seeing it, so I think it's a good thing.
Well, all the good things are stories too, because we live, humans have the capacity of language, and we live in a virtual world, right? Which are all our feelings and our thoughts, our overlays on our experience, right? But in a way, it's creative of it too, right? Because it's a very complex society and family structures and so on that we live in. And they probably wouldn't be here if we didn't have our thinking capability. Things would be much more simple. And maybe, I don't know, apparently we outgrew that, that simplicity as a species. We just said, no, that's it's old hat. We're not going to go over that anymore. So are you able to restory by yourself?
At this point, I've played with it a little, but I feel like my mind gets so overactive, and that's what was happening during that course of a couple of days, that I was like, maybe I need to first work on, catching the story and just seeing that it's not true, or that it is just a story. Maybe starting with that. I kind of felt like I was getting a little overwhelmed with it when I was trying to restory too much. Or I even, like it would feel false.
False. Like, it would feel false,
pretending,
yeah.
Or,
yeah, you got to get a good one. You can't just do it on anything.
Right.
Okay, two things, like one is overwhelmed. That would be quick. We can handle that. But another one is like, well, let's see. Well, overwhelmed is just a thought that I'm overwhelmed, right?
It's like in it, yeah.
It's nothing, because you
say whether the feeling or the thought comes first sometimes.
Well, wait a minute. Like, overwhelmed is an idea that everything is happening at once, but really, our mental capacity only handles one thing at a time. So when you notice that, even if things are coming really fast, overwhelmed is just one. It's not everything at once, Maybe it's just hollering out, hey, things are coming too fast. But so then you can just lay it aside and say, well, overwhelmed. That's nice. So what's next, like what? Overwhelmed is just a stopper, right? And then it does have its own feelings, right? It just means sit down and take a break. Well, okay, let's change overwhelmed and say, like, we don't use that word anymore. We just say sit down and take a break. Take a breath. Shift gears. And then don't use the overwhelmed word, though. Just say, okay, shift gear time. I think I'll sit down. Who's got the teapot? Yeah, go out and buy a bunch of herb teas, see? Here's one for you now. Go out and buy a bunch of herb teas, see? And then whenever you think overwhelmed, just go try another one and say, well, I wonder what this lemon one was like. Very good, very good. Overactive is the other one I want to talk about. What does it mean to be overactive when your mind is overactive? What does it tell us about that?
To me, it just feels like my mind is just spinning. Like I just get on this habitual course of trying to solve my life or figure out my life, all my mind, I feel, gets overactive when I start thinking about, I don't know, one of my biggest things, like, I know back to the non-duality teachings was that I was going to miss something. I was going to spend this lifetime and not find the thing that's worth finding. And that would make my mind very overactive.
Yeah. Of course, the way they say it even, maybe it's all logical, it doesn't have an experiential base and all that, but the way they say it is that thing that's worth finding is here and now. So then the overactive mind quite clearly is taking you away from the here and now. So
Right.
Then you can quite clearly see that, stop, take a pause.
But then you also hear, that it's those who suffer the most, that's when it clicks. That's when you find it. You hear something like that. I'm like, I must.
Oh yeah, you do believe that one? You kind of you've been up there in the high suffering quotient, right? And are you getting close?
No, I haven't gotten close with it, but I would use that as a reason to allow it to continue. To continue going down that path. Like,
okay. How about this, How about this? Let's just say that it's totally, completely false. Let's just say that one is completely false, And all those guys that blew up to get enlightened, they deserve it, And then the hell with them, And if they open their yap and talk about it, then they deserve to go to hell for talking about it, right? So that maybe they'll have a reflection of that thing, and it'll happen in their afterlife or in their lack of heaven or whatever. Let's just say it's completely, totally let go of that one because it's zero.
I am. I mean, with these things, I am a lot more and more. I mean, I've spent every day reading these articles, watching these videos, and committing myself to it for the past 8 years, and so I'm not going to lie and say that I haven't been looking at all, during this experiment, but I've definitely more and more am just losing interest in it. And it's funny, the more I see, even like with the gap and even just letting go of everything and kind of getting back to living life, it's like then you kind of understand those teachings a little bit more, not necessarily seeing exactly like they're saying, but kind of makes sense a little bit more some of what they were saying versus when I was trying so hard to get it.
Yeah. Just to hit that one more time about what you're seeing more clearly. Be specific instead of just saying those teachings. Take one.
Like for instance, they say like living in a world of not knowing, and then before, okay, well then I sit there and I try to be not knowing, or it always comes down to putting effort into it because even non-doing, you sit there and we're trying to not do anything. And
Yeah, yeah.
it's very effortful, and then it's frustrating,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it's...
Well, that's a
But
matter, because you're like, you're very, how should I say it? You're very enterprising and studious, right? And so then if somebody says, you can be not knowing, you say, okay, I'm going to go right out and do it. But you can't do undoing, right?
Right.
So then, okay, let me give you a take on what is this overactive mind. Could it be that you're searching for reasons and principles and trying to sort through all those 8 years? And there's tons of info that you've taken in these 8 years, and you're doing a whole big sort. All the papers are going from this side to this side, saying one of these stacks has got some more info on this. And then it's kind of like you're juggling reasons, and then that's what you and external principles, and that's what you've defined as an overactive mind. Could that be right?
Yeah, in those situations, and then I guess in social situations, my overactive mind, like, I don't even know, like, it's hard for me to even see what it's saying, but it just feels overactive. Like all this stress reaction comes up, and it's like, I don't know, but it just feels overactive.
Okay, do you sweat?
I'm actually not a sweater. I do find I smile a lot when I'm nervous.
Yeah, right.
It's I don't know. It's like I disconnect. I can't. The one thing I want most is to be authentic with people, but I feel so far from it when I'm.
Okay, now listen, you're sweet. You're totally sweet. Because like there's a lot of people that didn't do too well in school. I wrote it in a chapter. I don't know if I ever gave you that stuff or not. And so then, at a certain point, following logic, there's a tendency for their mind to jump off. And these are the guys that say, too many words, let's talk about the heart, right? But that's because too many words that's their experience when you start to make a logical statement. And, I'm not saying a logical statement is king or queen or anything like that, or the best way to go about stuff. But anyhow, they have a disconnect or a blank out, right? And then they just cut off from all the words and say, I didn't get anything. I was totally confused. I think some of our people have that syndrome running. It's not that I'm trying to point to them now or trying to say that they should get over it or anything. I'm just saying whatever is happening, I never say anything except notice it, right? And so then they got this thing that's called whiteout or blank out when they read, right? And then now you got a similar thing when you're, when you're faced with somebody new and they say something and you have a blank out, right? And then all you can do is smile. You don't know what to say.
Right.
Yeah. And so then it's, you have to see that as sweet, that you're like a sweet child, right? That's a sweet child within you. That just kind of like hey, what's going on here? They said something. Am I supposed to respond or what?
Part of what's so frustrating about that is, and I know this is one thing that my mind jumps to a lot was, in the past, whenever up to the point till I was like 18, I could be shy, but I was not like this. I was pretty social. I had a lot of friends. I communicated easily with people. I wanted to be a teacher in school. I loved kids. And then, I can almost remember to the day whenever I just started having these thoughts that I wasn't okay the way I was, that I needed to be different. I needed to be more like, this person. And then from then, that's when I felt like everything started, and depression and anxiety, and then the whole spiritual search came in after that. And then now I feel so disconnected and different from everybody else because of it. I feel has been, a big part of my social issues. So I know, like you're gonna say, and I know that's all thoughts in my head as well. It's my biggest story that I run all the time.
Come on now, tell me what I'm gonna say. Go ahead, just let it out.
I mean, I know it.
What am I gonna say? What am I gonna say?
About my story?
No, anything. You said, now you're gonna say, and then you jumped off of that one.
Well, I don't know what you were going to say.
All right. I'll give you a hint then. Well, a traditional kind of analysis probably would go to that point, especially since you remember it right there, and say, well, what could be that around, what are the events around that point? Or, like what could it be that caused that turning point? But I don't know if I would go there, I would go before then and say,
I really think I want to go there. It's like I just want, my biggest want and desire has been just to go back to being that same girl, I guess, that was so comfortable with herself.
Right on.
I know that's just an idea.
I mean, that's the proof of it right there, that you are, you could do it because you did it, right? And so then that's your experience. And then whatever happened in between, well, let that sort out by itself, or otherwise, maybe it'll become more clear later. But the less, it doesn't really pay to put attention on that point, because that's more about attention of what doesn't work instead of attention of what does work, right?
Right.
So why don't you, like in a social situation, you could have a sign, right? Patience. But you could say, like, look, I don't always come back with the quickest response, but if you let me just work it out, work through my heat spells.
That's the thing. I think I need to give myself more patience, because silence with myself, I'm very comfortable with. I have a lot of practice with it, but with others, it's very uncomfortable. That's when I get the most uncomfortable. So I will try to feel it, but then it's not like, it's like I'm just blabbering, basically. I feel like most of the time it won't even make sense. It's just words to fill the space.
Yeah, just to fill the space, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, even, yeah.
Some more you're judging me because I am being quiet or that I seem anxious, so then therefore I try to put out that I'm not anxious, when in fact I'm extremely anxious.
Yeah, we were just talking about that in another conversation, saying that, some of the people that are the most bubbly and the most happy are actually feeling suicidal, but they really mask it, right?
Right. Do you feel ashamed to, like, let stuff like that show, I guess?
Yeah, you can't know. Even if you look at the hangout, when people got in the gap or when something didn't come up, it seems like an imposition just to be on the spotlight, but on the hot seat, sort of. And then everyone's waiting for, everyone's waiting for you to say something, and you want to get off that hot seat pretty quick. Or otherwise you want to flow with something you figured out before to say. But basically, I'm probably saying that every sharing, every encounter in your whole life, there's no preparation, and you should come from a white screen. I'm probably saying that, right? And it might take a while to get to a point like that, or to trust yourself in that kind of situation. Because I'm saying about inspiration, I'm saying about spontaneity, I'm saying about, inspiration as opposed to principles. Live your life by inspiration. So then how do you do that? Well, there's no how. You have to do it. The only way you can have inspiration is by an inspiration, right? You can't have it for a reason. So
and all
then,
of that gets so covered up, with your stories. But I'm finding as I'm seeing those stories as they're coming up, and maybe dismissing them or just not giving it as much credence as I once was, and those kind of things just kind of more naturally do come up, where I just kind of want to do this, whereas before I wouldn't want to do anything. So
yeah, you have a built-in risk factor. You know the risk factor, and so then you don't want to face any of those risks. So then, if there's a
right.
tinge of risk factor there, go the other way.
That takes away all spontaneity of life. Life just seems like this just sucks. It just sucks, and I knew deep down in my heart like this isn't the way life is meant to be lived. I think that's what sent me on my search I've been on.
Spontaneity comes up a lot with the other too, because if you're kind of like just on a track of your own, well, you might have it all mapped out, right? But then the other throws in a little bit of, think, whoa, what do I mean by that? Oh yeah, and then you just take your spontaneity and go with that. So then, and without engagement, I'm saying maybe it's more difficult to know what spontaneous means.
Right.
So in a way, we haven't really said, okay, you present me with a story and I redo it, and then you feel better and all that. That's kind of like how it is, right? How we broke it down in what we call the sequences. Like you go to an open space or a pause, and then you see story is grading you. Of course, it's already there. Maybe it's the one you're interested in is a reaction that's ongoing, which are also in reactions definitely with yourself. With yourself means like you feel like you have an overactive mind. It might not be anyone else that really teed you off in the moment. It just, who knows? There's reactions come from all different directions. So then the sequence says, kind of dig into that reaction and try to see, well, what am I really saying to myself? We didn't really do all that stuff, but we talked about a lot of situations, and we talked about a broader view of them, which is a restoring, right? And then we talked about, like, okay, well, in an encounter with another, at this time in your life, you require a little bit more time. And that people to give you 60 seconds before you even say anything or whatever, and then just see. And then if you're okay with that, and it'll take a while for you to be okay with it, because you feel the pressure that, oh, they're waiting for me, they're waiting, oh, they're waiting for me. Uh-oh, I should have done this. Yeah. So it's merely a blank out, right? So then it's cute, right? What else can you say? Hold it in a nice way, right?
It makes you look stupid or something. I think those are the biggest thoughts that'll go through my head. Like, I just look stupid, or I just feel stupid because I'm not, I don't know, not normal, like they're being able to communicate.
Well, I mean, you can always put a story on it. Like you could say, I've got a certain sensitivity that'll come in handy someday, right? And then the fact that I kind of go into a space, I could call it blank out, but I could also call it like I'm in a creative space. And then you might be the most creative speaker ever. Because you're just a natural for coming. Your every statement comes from a creative space. As soon as you get used to it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I want. I want to be more, slow things down and be more authentic and not just say things to please others or to appear a certain way, or I don't want to be that way anymore.
Yeah, well, just, it's a real fine line because you can say, well, I'm not trying to please others anymore, but then you can notice that you're trying to displease them, or you could say, I give a hoot. But anyhow, it's a fine balance. That's okay. You search back and forth, you find it.
Right.
See, because I would believe lots of times I would come up with no word. If I remember, I can remember all of high school, right? And writing, and even before in grade school, right? And I was very poor with English language and my kind of retention of, I almost all the time, I found myself for hours on end searching for a word that I know there's a word that means what I want to say. And I would always be there trying to construct phrases that meant that one simple word, but it doesn't come in, And I'm thinking, oh my God. I'd try to figure out a phrase or a way to say it, because that word was just, I knew it was there somewhere, but it just wouldn't come, Whether I was trying to force it, I never even thought of that since for ages, until up to now, it just popped in. That really I spent days and days. I mean, every day I spent hours trying to find out how to communicate, and I was really unable to write or talk.
It's like all that effort just really does put like a block on things. We're not built to run like that, I guess, is the way it feels.
Yeah, who knows? Right. I think I got over it, but anyhow, not totally. Okay, like some tricks, Put some things in your purse, all kinds of little show and tells. And then when you run out of things to say, dig around in there and look for one. Figure it out, And that'll give you time while everything will look good because you're trying to find your show and tell.
Right.
It's one of my tricks, right? I don't have a purse, though, but I could dance around the room and say, where did I put that now?
I'll be right back.
Dancing is good, moving. You move around the room and stuff and just say, here, wait, let me show you. Let's see. I got to get to open space where I can spread my arm. Okay. It takes up the space, right? While you're thinking, or you're not even thinking, you're just waiting for a delivery, right? And that package is late.
I mean, I think I'm definitely, like I said, even today, I would catch the thoughts would start to come in, oh, I'm nervous, this is scary, and I would just see them, and it's like they wouldn't grab me like before. I think your explanation of a train is a pretty good descriptor of it. It's like you jump on and you don't even realize it. It's like that's just the way the moment is. So you think that's the moment, but in all reality, you don't have to choose for it to be that way. And it was just like that. I had let it go, let it go, let it go, without a whole lot of effort at all. But it was just as soon as I sat down then in front of the camera, then it was more of a physical reaction, which then in those types of situations makes it a little bit trickier, I think, to then catch that train of thought.
Yeah, that's another train that's going underneath, right? And somehow you're already on that one. I'm exposed. It's the exposure train, right?
Right.
And then there's some kind of thing that says don't put yourself into too much exposure.
Right.
We're involved with a special needs child, and she's really not a child. She's just a couple years younger than you, but special needs can still seem to be there. And so what you and I are talking about is to notice the link between what we think and say to ourselves and how we feel, right? And then we're not trying to be medics here and try to really say that every disorder is psychosomatic, but there's a component to that, certainly. And in this case, the person I'm referring to is seems to be excellent at creating a malady on the flip of a dime, right? Something can happen, and I don't know. So then I'm not really saying anything about you, but I noticed you had a headache and just before the hangout. And
I
then,
promise I did not.
yeah, and then it turned it into bronchitis so that you could be sure that you couldn't go.
Oh no, I promise. I was out of work Monday and Tuesday with bronchitis. I still am coughing and wheezing.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
If
No.
I was just too afraid, I would have said I'm too afraid. I'm not
Yeah.
too afraid to admit when I'm too afraid.
Yeah,
Not with you guys, anyways, because you already know that I'm a nervous Nelly. But no, I definitely was not feeling well. Could I have sucked it up and just done it? Probably, but
Okay, like I'm not really trying to talk about that event, or trying to say,
Okay.
no, you should be, you should have, or could have, or anything like that. All I'm trying to do is ask you, like in your life, when the pressure's on, do you somehow find that it gets transferred to a physical condition? That you might call delicate health?
Well, as far as headaches, I could say that. I feel like stress and real tough times can definitely. I don't know if that's what you're getting to. That could trigger headaches with myself. As far as illness, I don't really get sick very often.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, so which surprises me because I am so stressful and like I work in an animal hospital with a lot of people, and people will get sick, and I usually don't get sick. So
Yeah, well, that's good.
I do get a lot of headaches.
Yeah. Okay, I was just trying to open an inquiry, like if there's a link there. And if it's not happening, that's good. But, of course, if you are stressful and feeling stress a lot, even if you're real stout health, even if your health is really excellent, it'll wear it down. You can be certain of that. So then it's good. It's a good time before you are manifesting any kind of inconveniences that you can realize that this stress has to be handled, right?
I totally agree.
Yeah.
And so, I feel like, time is, as you get older, it just seems like time's gone by so, so fast, and so many years I've spent being very stressed out and secluded, and I want to change that.
Yeah. No, it's good. So that's a huge intention that you can just really get behind, right? And saying, well, the time is right, And then this guy came on with me and he said, okay, you can even wait until you're in your 60s, but, please don't. Right. So I don't know what to hit, like a couple of things. Well, it's so cool to say that this is an experiment, right? Because then you don't have to believe anything. Because we're usually so used to waiting until we have the proof before we act. So then an experiment is just like we got a new job, we're medics or we're scientists or something. We go into the laboratory, we do something different. And then we measure the results. And then the results is that stress, right? And then we have a flag, the stress flag, and we're going to call it the open space of good feeling. But anyhow, you get to a point where you don't have to have any kind of name for it at all. You just feel your body, that's all. And you feel it at every moment, and you feel every thought has a repercussion or a reflection or a ripple that goes through your body, and you just feel it, right? Sometimes you play some weird thoughts, and that's okay, but, you're not so scared anymore because you know that if it ever gets out of hand, you just go in there and restore you. Or call someone up, one of your friends from the experiment or something, and they'll kind of coach you to back off those descriptors that seem so tight.
Definitely.
Yeah. So then life becomes an experiment. Why not? Because at first it's all on a survival trail, right? We get to the point where we're just trying to make it, and there's no room to do anything
Every
that's
day was.
when there's no room anymore to do anything that's like a little bit adventurous or like a little bit expansive. Like what will happen if I do this? If you're totally on survival, of course, you only can do all those basic necessities and run to do them too, and then the only thing to face is your exhaustion, right? And we don't even know if that exhaustion, what part of that is really just because we ran so far and what part of it is because we're just objecting to the whole scenario, It's like our objection just turns us off. Just like you said, okay, when I get in a social situation, something in me turns off and I don't know what to say it all the time, right? And so then when you're doing a whole series of things you don't care to do, then there's something inside of you that turns off too, and your energy level goes, ooh, 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 ooh.
For sure.
We call that exhaustion, right? Oh my God. And is that because we work so hard, or is that because we hate it so much, right?
That's exactly what happens. That happens a lot. A lot with me.
Because if you're ever doing something that you totally love, I don't know what that could be for you, but sometimes could be playing music. I guess guitarists and really like musicians like their music and they jam for 6 hours at a row, and in a way it's giving them energy, right? If the tune they're creating is kind of catchy and they like it, and they're getting more facility at it and the fingers fly a little faster, they're thinking, oh, I'm getting it. So then when you're doing something you're getting, right, you feel like, oh, there's a good feedback here. Then that really gives energy more than takes energy, right? So then just the straight logic of movement requires effort, requires energy, depletes. That whole scenario is up to a point proved wrong. And then, okay, maybe you love animals. You're over there with the animals.
No, I do love animals.
Yeah, so then that part of your job.
People that comes with the working animals.
Oh, yeah? Yeah, well, they're nervous because their animal is sick. But, when you deliver the animal that's got recovered, then they're happy, right? And they think, oh, my God, I'm so grateful to you guys. My kitten was so sick and seems...
It's not even the clients that I tend to... I kind of do pretty good with those situations, because I have their pet to talk to them about, and it's a little more easy, but it's more my coworkers, the people that I work with every day, that I see every day.
Oh, yeah.
Where my biggest challenges come in.
No, I agree, because I know, like, my brother had a dog, and that was his main social event, He'd go walk the dog, and then there'd be this person with their dog and that person with their dog, and it seems like in our closed society, one thing that's allowed is to say, oh, your dog is great. What a beautiful dog. That's allowed, And so then all of a sudden you become friends with everybody, right?
Instant kinship.
Yeah, right. Pet people. All right, well, let me have a scenario of your workplace and who's bugging you and what they do. What do they say?
Like for instance, one of the doctors that that works at my facility. She can be pretty, snippy, quick to, criticize, and I'll feel like you try to do everything so that you don't get fussed at or get yelled at, and there's still always something, which I can realize that that's an issue she has, within herself, but it still doesn't stop me from feeling like, oh my God, I just can't feel like I can even be around her, that's one of the big ones.
Are there a lot of things in handling a pet that could, like you got to do 10 right things, and if you do 8 right and 2 wrong, I mean, would there be something that you would, in care and setting, in other words, you set up her appointment, right? Maybe you bring the pet in there, maybe you wash him or something like that, maybe this, that, maybe that. What?
Well, we do surgery and stuff like that too. So
oh, yeah.
Setting up for surgery and doing catheters and monitoring under anesthesia and stuff like that. And it's all very fast paced. I feel like it's a pretty stressful job. You're making sure they're breathing.
So you're right in there. You're like a nurse then, huh?
Yeah, I'm a nurse.
Oh boy.
So it's easy to get very wound up, and then when you have someone, kind of nitpicking and breathing down your back, and I don't know, it makes it harder to deal with the already stressful part of the job.
So I could see that. Okay, like, probably certain doctors, surgeons, maybe even in with humans, right? They might have they let something out of their personality that they might not let out in their day-to-day life, but when they get in their operating theater, they feel like the way to control it is, I don't know, the way someone else controlled it with them, probably. And probably
right.
Passing it on, how they learn, right? We're doing a lot of dental work here. Especially Rena is actually the one that's doing it. And that the dentists, the Thai dentists, and sometimes they have one assistant, sometimes 2, and they are in a perfect dance together. It's an amazing dance that they do. And of course, that's different because then the patient's conscious. They're not going to chew each other out, right? Because the patient will get nervous.
Right.
But anyhow.
Right. The animal can't say anything, so
yeah.
you can kind of behave however
Yeah.
you want to. She has very reactive behavior. You just never know, like, one thing you say or don't do, and it's instant anger, and I don't cope very well with anger within myself or with other people, with expressing it or with being around it, I guess.
Yeah. I guess I give myself a lot of permission with anger, and it's over in a flash. It can flash up, and then it's gone, right? And then everybody in my life has not always been really good at handling that part of me. And it's not really out of control, and I suppose at one time in life you give yourself permission, you think that that's really a part of me and that should get out, right? And I don't necessarily believe that anymore. But anyhow, handling anger, I mean, I guess you've got it pretty well narrowed down to what's really happening. Anger, huh? There'll be a time when anger doesn't touch you, right? That's a descriptor too. We're making a description that I don't like this. And why are they doing it? They don't need to be angry with me. I'm doing the right thing. So then there's a justification there that says, it shouldn't happen this way. Now, another descriptor would just be like, okay, well, that's how they do it around here. That's their thing, and that's their tightness, you know. I can even pray. I can even pray to God, you know, that their stomach will forgive them for all this extra acid that they're pouring in, you know.
Right.
Right, and then that would be another descriptor. In other words, the descriptor for not accepting anger is that it shouldn't be here because, you know, they have no right to be angry with me, and I didn't do anything to deserve it, as if anger has anything to do with a deserving or meriting formula. But anyhow, those kind of things, I don't know, try that on next time and just see that. And don't try to just flip it over on them and say, well, they'll go to hell for that.
Right.
But just see that it doesn't really matter to you, you know, because you're not saying it shouldn't be that way. Because really there's, okay, like, how should I put it? Every time I absorb a feeling from anyone or anywhere, or even from myself, you know, I'm wearing it on my body. Saying, doesn't this look nice, you know? And I'm using my body as a reflector so that I understand it better. So then there'll be a point when I already understand it, and I don't need to use my body in that way anymore to reflect something, because I already understand that that's your anger, not mine.
Right.
And I don't need to offer my body to react to that, right? Because I already know it. And so then I want to protect my body, because my body is like my thing, you know. It's holding me and carrying me around, and it's going to do it for a long time. And I don't want it to share that person's acid stomach, right? Doesn't need it. And so then that protection thing says that I'm not going to try this one on now. See if that works, you know. It's just another descriptor saying, like, you know, you're acknowledging the link between your thought and your feeling. And that same link exists between someone else's thought and your feeling, too. And we call it resonance, reflection, all that stuff. But anyhow, there's a choice to it. And I'm saying let there be a choice to it, right? And the choice is that this unit is my unit, right? And so then, in this case, sometimes when you're feeling love, I want to feel it too, so then I share. But now, because I already know what's happening, I've tested it in here a bunch of times, I'm not going to test it anymore. And then just see that you're totally immune from that. It cannot touch you.
I think justification was the key word there. It is you constant trying to justify the fact that, well, I should be angry with her. You know, she shouldn't act that way, and lots of shoulds and shouldn'ts.
Yeah, there's several stages. One is like, she's angry with me, so I'll be angry with her.
Right.
Well, that's the worst one, you know, because then you're really falling into it. Then the other level of it is that she's angry with me, and I feel her anger inside of me, right? And then I resent it, or, you know, well, I know that it's futile and it's damaging to me. But now there's a third layer, I'm saying, where you just say, well, okay, I see it all happening outside. There's actually a tornado here, but I'm not going to blow with the wind, you know. And then see if it works. I think it will.
I will definitely do that.
Okay, then that leaves us with your kind of social thing, where you kind of do your blank out deal, right? Or whatever, you know. Don't let me make up something that doesn't exist.
Blank out our blab.
Blank out or blab, you know. You're covering the blank out with the blab, right? Or then you judge that it's not really, you judge it. That's cool, yeah. So then there's a middle road there, right? And it's okay to see it doesn't happen every time, you know. The middle road doesn't always happen. Right? Sometimes it does, and then you could, if it does, try to celebrate it and keep it, you know, and own it. If it doesn't, don't personalize it. Don't celebrate it, right?
But not to give myself such a hard time.
Yeah, really. No, you're the best person. In your book, you've got to be at the top of the list, right? Of the birthday cards and all that stuff you And life is fun, right? It's a play, right? So then that's called the being friendly to yourself part, You give yourself that fun and play. And then every time you remember, oh, I'm not playing, and then go, well, why not? It's only experiment, right? I'm only going to play for a while. Later, I'll get serious.
Good point. Moment by moment.
Yeah. I don't know. I think you're good. So, like, I don't know. Should I kind of push on the experiment or the process, or I really shouldn't, should I? I mean, okay, the one called the spark of the image. How do you like that one?
I can definitely. I don't know necessarily that whenever I try to sit like in the gap per se and just rest, I don't know that I see. I guess I can kind of see the multiple options that I go with. I'm mostly now just noticing that main train of thought, that I would be so used to habitually jumping on and catching that right now. But I understand what you mean by a spark of an image. Like before you jumped onto the train, it's more of a possibility than an actual line of thinking.
Yeah. Well, because like in meditation, they say that labels are thoughts. So then if there's an image that's recognizable, it's already got a label, right? And so then they would just discount that and say, thought, failure, thought, another thought, discard.
Right.
And we're just saying no, that is where choice lies, because choice, it's still obvious. It's not really a brainstorm to say that choice is more than one option, right? If there's only one, that's no choice, right?
Right.
So then more than one option means don't go on the first one, because when you're going on something, on motion, you're all occupied with it. There's no room for something else to squeak in, right? It only comes in what we call the gap. So then spark of an image is just honoring the fact that choices can appear without us going on them, right? And if we live a life of urgency and neediness, then we have to go on every thought, right? Because every thought is probably one of those hot ones, that's urgent and needy. And somehow we have to kind of, and then urgency and neediness is all about our meanings, that this is really important. And then we start thinking about it all right away. Should I run it this way? Should I run it that way? We'll run all the scenarios. We'll try to figure out what they are. And then that's all these principles that are coming down that are borrowed, And there's all the principles and all the 8 years of study. You got to go through all the papers and stuff. And then, you say, I'm overworking my mind, I think I better sit down. But you're sitting down with, because you're stressed out. You're like, flat. You collapse, right? It's not a really good sitting down. That's not going to find the gap. You're just exhausted. So then, all the idea of we're trying to take away all of that and saying there's nothing. Everything. Any of those principles even are inside, and they come out at the right time. And so then there's no shuffling, no paper shuffling necessary, right? So then you're just sitting there and waiting for this inspiration to pop. And then maybe it does and maybe it doesn't. Maybe it takes a long time. Maybe you don't wait that long. But anyhow, choice is pause. That's just the simplest definition we can have, because you're pausing for what? For the second option, the third option, the fifth option. Then later we can weigh the options too, and we can see, oh, this is so hard. And first of all, we know all the past and future ones, right? You can't do anything with them, right? All you can do is blame and guilt, or otherwise on the other direction you can worry and fear. And so then really that's only using up your body again, right? Using it up for like what? You know, it's just kind of like you're wasting all those acids and all those adrenalines and all those dopamines or whatever those things are. I don't know which are which. But you're wasting them all because you only should have all those things in the present, right? Where you can actually make an action step. Right.
Right.
So then all those sparks of images can just be set into the corner and saying, you know, never, not later.
More.
Yeah. And then the other ones, you know, maybe there's some truly new options in there. They might be not really wild because we have our belief structure and we can't see beyond it. So then there's really not an option that's going to be a total breakthrough or a total challenge either, right? The options are going to be little steps, right? And then what we're going to do? We're going to try to take an option that doesn't really tighten us up, right? We're going to try to take an option that eases us. Because when we're open in the body, we're open in the mind. When we're open in the mind, we can see more opportunities. And we're able to say yes to one or two of them. And when we're open in the mind, we're not running on urgency and neediness. So then there's room for a little extra experiment, right? So then that's about the sparks of images. Right? Always keeping in mind friendly to yourself. And then, I don't know, we don't have to really get, maybe we'll do that next week, you know. I'm going to try to get someone in to do it, to shift a few of us, just so we get an idea of restoring. And bring in a guest if I can. I don't know if he's going to say yes or not. Otherwise, maybe we'll do it ourselves. Yeah. And then, I don't know. For me, this whole thing is automatic, right? I know that somebody's trying to get in there, right? Why not? This thing's all automatic now, you know. Like I don't do any sequences or any thinking or any bringing myself to anything. I can't leave it, right? It's the only thing that makes any sense to me is this moment. Now bring her in.
Yeah.
Come on.
This is Luigi.
Luigi! Hey, Luigi! ¿Qué pasa, Luigi? ¿Qué pasa? What's going on?
To lay on the keyboard.
Oh, yeah.
That's where I like to lay.
He walks on the keyboard. He's a musician, right?
Oh, yeah. Wants to lay on it. And
Oh, yeah. He wants to play chords. He's looking for a new chord, see?
That's right.
Great, oh, great.
Oh, but I'm excited, you know, because usually I start something new like this, and I'll be all about it for a short period of time. And I did do this with the experiment, you know. This is good, and then I was like, no, I need to go back to Moody. I need to go back to this and go back to that. But I feel like I'm really actually starting to see it and actually see results from it, which from anything else the only results that I've ever received were not positive ones, you know, they were negative ones. And not to say it was intended to be negative, but I just, you know, it didn't help me. That was the fact, and this has already a lot.
Yeah, well, one thing is important is to own those results, you know, like posting is a good way to do it, right? Because it's so easy to say, I don't own them, you know, it didn't happen, or it was a coincidence or something like that. So it's pretty important to own them. And then, I don't know, I get into talking about the differences between what we're doing and what other people do, and few people don't like that. But anyhow, when you're sure that something else won't last, you know, it's because it's not you. It's been applied from outside, you know.
Right.
But when something is happening that, you know, you feel like you own it, it really just happened as your own discovery. Then you
and I thought at first that this was like suppression, you know, like that's what I was telling myself. Like if I don't just let these thoughts go and come up and release as they need to, that's suppressing it. And that's what I felt for a little while, but I don't see it that way anymore.
Well, that's the
It
other
doesn't
people's.
feel that way.
That's the other people's explanation of thought. See, that thoughts are real things, and they come up, and they're entities that deserve some kind of honor, and that they have to be brought up, and they have to seek their own expression. Number one, or maybe not expression, but they have to seek their own. What's a good word for that? Their own destiny. But we don't say that thoughts are things. We just say that thoughts are tendencies. And that actually, if you pause, you find choice among your tendencies. And so then we say, well, choose. Don't just express, don't just take the first one. So then they don't need to be expressed, or they don't need to find their own destiny, right? They just don't need to be born, right? They can come as a spark, but don't bring them into life as don't resuscitate that spark. Don't blow on it and add fuel on it. And so then that's the total difference. That's why it's not suppression.
Right.
Yeah. Boy, we said a lot of good things, huh?
I think so.
Yeah. How about you? You got any questions?
I don't think so. I mean, even coming into talking with you, I didn't. And I'm not saying like it's because I just understand everything. I feel like up to the point I understand you pretty clearly. I'm excited to see what's to come in the next chapters. And generally I devour books. I get a book and I read it in less than a day. So this has been kind of torture to have to wait like weeks. But I think that's been good for me, because then I actually get to take in more than just speed through it.
Yeah, it's kind of been a quiet period on the forum, and maybe I got worried. I thought, who's going to put energy in here, right? And it's only me, and every time I put energy in, nothing happens. And so then I think, is this finished or what?
I still go on there to read. I've never, again, that's just a story. I've never been big into writing stuff. I find myself, even when I go to post on the forum, I'm backspace, and I'm like, okay, I'm not even gonna write it out. If it feels like it just flows, then I'll write. But
yeah, well, it doesn't always flow. Why don't you keep a journal then, and then you can maybe transfer some journal passages. It doesn't have to be really big. It doesn't even have to be formulated. We do something every once in a while called morning pages. And morning pages are just blah blah that comes out. You just pour it out. And it doesn't even have to be a sentences or nothing. And then somehow that's a scene of what's in my mind at the moment. And so I don't know. I'm not really one for. I've never done much journaling, but I guess I am journaling because I've done video journaling for all these years. And then all my episodes are somehow a journal. And then I've been writing these chapters and all that stuff. So in a way, that's kind of like, so I am actually doing something like that.
I've tried to journal in the past. It'll last a couple of days and I lose interest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about it, so. So anyhow, like, I don't even know. I mean, I got a few more chapters and stuff like that. Like, I think that these two, somehow we should talk more about the sequence. Sometimes I feel like I shouldn't press the sequence too much because I don't even use it. But it is kind of breaking it down so you get the understanding of, like, A goes to B, goes to C, goes to D. And then this is kind of like a meaning behind it and the methodology, really, if you really break it apart. But somehow it all just flows when you're really in life, right? I don't know.
I think once you actually see it, then it makes it less of having to be a sequence like that.
Right. So anyhow, there's more work, more stuff to divulge there. It's more like an application of what we've talked about. And for instance, I have a chapter on economics, which is kind of like not really very spiritual at all. It's just kind of telling my take on it, without really researching anything. And I know, like Rosie made a post about what do you do in life situations when people are talking about the politicians and the money system and everything that's gone wrong in the world. And so then there's kind of like an application of what good is this experiment when we're confronted with that. So that there's a couple of other chapters going on. I don't know where to take it. But we'll see how it works. I think that's maybe that's, and as far as you saying you understand everything or not, it's just enough for now. It's enough for now, just to say that it feels good.
And this in and of itself, I'm trying not to give too much meaning to, because I think that's what caused me to get into a tailspin with it, was that I was making it into this big technique that I needed to focus every moment on. But when I saw that I just kind of relaxed it and really just come to it when I felt tense, that helped me a lot with the scenario. So
really good. Okay, that's perfect. That's about perfectly said, so maybe we'll close on that. So thank you, Becky Irwin.
Thank you. Thank both you and Rena. I'm very thankful for
All
both
right.
of you guys.
Okay. So then, write me or call me anytime, and then we'll handle anything that you need added to that. So
All right.
just being with, having you in the group has been real important for me and Rena, because we just somehow we feel you in a great way. So bye for now.
Bye.